Good morning, everybody. It's Ray Gibson, and it's early Sunday morning on the, I think it's the 9th, of July. Anyway, I wanted to make an addendum to the March on Washington video that I created the day after Juneteenth. And I wanted to say that, even though I'm a very passionate person, I'm very a fully self-expressed type of individual. I wanted y'all to know some things about that video. First of all, I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that this March on Washington be anything other than a loving march. I know I may come across as a militant, but I am not. I'm radical, yes, but I am not militant. And you'll have to look those words up in the dictionary to know the difference between militant and radical. But I just wanted to state that up front, that this has got to be solidarity in the name of love of our people. Speaking of the LGBTQ and all the rest of the letters. So, by the way, if you wouldn't mind, you can over here you can subscribe. I probably will drop some links up here, especially about the Million Man March and maybe some other marches that have gone on in this country in the name of in the name of a lot of different things. This one is our survival. Because I want you to know something. I don't remember where I was when I saw the name of this movie. Oh my God, you have to brace yourselves if you actually go out and watch this movie. I think it's available. Oh no, it's on Netflix. And I don't know if it's also on Prime Video. But the name of this movie is called El Dorado. Everything the Nazis Hate. The Nazi Party. And it's about how they all but wiped out the LGBT in Nazi Germany during World War II. The most disturbing thing I ever saw. And not because it was disturbing, but it was because of the similarities between what happened there and what's happening here. The giving of our rights to us and then taking them away, and trying to take away large gains and things that we haven't even made in this country, really. If they talk the medical industry into going against us, where does that leave us? If they make it illegal for them to treat us, you think they're not going to honor their, you think cisgender heterosexual allies and the likes aren't going to protect their licenses versus sticking up for us? That would be a grave mistake to think that people are disturbed enough about what's going on here that they won't just sit around and watch like they have been watching a lot of atrocities going on in the United States. Our country is real big on going out and telling other countries about their human rights violations, because none of these other countries are courageous enough to call the United States out on its own bullshit and human rights violations. They'll go around the world telling everybody else what's wrong with them and not really looking at what's wrong with us, what's wrong in our own backyard. So I wanted to say that about that movie. Oh my God. They all but wiped the LGBT off the map in Nazi Germany. And if you think these people can't do it with the velocity and the speed of which they're coming after us, don't underestimate the GOP. Look at they're playing the long game. They're not playing the short game. And if we just sit around and wait for them to do what they do, like I said in the last video, we're going to lose everything and then some. They're really trying to drive us out of society while everybody else watches and has a wait and see attitude. This is what I meant by the Democrats and the progressives and the left wing, or whatever they want to call them, not having a backbone. Nobody is standing up. I mean, do people really think that our allies are going to save us from this? No. You think we're going to save us from this? That's why I suggested a march on Washington. So when I said leadership needs to get together in all these little organizations, I meant the executives and the boards of all of these organizations. That's who I was talking about when I said leadership. They're the only ones that can reach across the aisle to other executives and other organizations and say enough is enough and lead people in some kind of an effort to show that we're not going to go away quietly like we're doing right now. So in that last video, I also mentioned Juneteenth. And, it's a black holiday. And we don't want people hijacking it, changing the narrative of what Juneteenth was really about, and, making money at our expense. Because people will do that. They love to do that to black people. They watered down MLK to a tolerable level to them and ignored all the other things that man said. They got rid of him because he was talking about economics for black people. He was talking about reparations long before they even started talking about that word. And that's why they got rid of MLK. The other leaders, for other reasons. But they're always seeking a way to put us in our place. And by the same token, they're doing the same thing to the LGBTQ. They've got everybody on their heels. They've got everybody reeling. But the place they want to put us in is clean off the fucking map. Force us to live as the sex we were born as. They don't understand anything about what it is to be transgender. Not even cisgender people in the LGBTQ understand it either, because I have seen them attack us in the exact same manner that cisgender heterosexual people attack us. Right now it's the GOP. That is why I think why it looks like the LGBTQ is not backing us and they're just sitting by watching, because they don't understand us either. They don't understand how it's possible to have the mind of the opposite sex. I know they're calling it gender, but that's just a word that they created to differentiate between sex and gender. But they don't understand how it's possible for me to have the mind of a man and the body of woman. They don't understand that. And if they're religious, even if they're LGBTQ plus, they're screaming the same stuff that transphobic people all over the nation are saying. That if you're born a female, you're a female. If you're born a male, you're a male. You can't be anything else. That's what they think. Because they don't understand what this is about at all. And they don't want to be educated. All the education in the world that we're doing for each other, just within the LGBTQ, is not reaching people fast enough. It's not reaching people effectively. Yeah, it's not. It's just going on in our own little world, and then the world outside of us has no clue what this is about. But I also mentioned the lies. And what are those lies that they're telling each other? You know, that we're after their children. We are not after their children. I knew when I was a child what was going on. I just didn't have the language for it. And had I known the language and that there were effective ways at the time for me to deal with my gender dysphoria, I would have done something about it back then. But nobody put this in my head. Ever. Nobody puts it in LGBTQ plus people's heads either. It's something that is natural. And I know the religious front people want to think it's not natural. That we're not born with this. That we're not born this way. But we are. And the lie is that we're not born this way. That we wake up one day and because of a deviant mind or some kind of illness, you know, it was a mental illness to these people. Being gay was a mental illness until they got over that. And being transgender was a mental illness until the medical industry, the healthcare industry, said it's not an illness. But tried to convince these people that it's not. They ain't budging. They think what they think and they're trying to ram it down our throats. Even though there's nothing we can do about this. There is nothing. They can't force people not to be who they are. But if they can't force us, they will kill us, they will jail us, they will imprison us, they will bully us. And this is the beginning. All these bills they're creating is the beginning of that. Again, go watch the movie El Dorado. That shit happened. That was real. Another lie I feel was that we're trying to include these things in school books for minors. We're not doing that. Somebody else is doing that, but we as a community aren't doing that. Other people are. And they're being haphazard about it. They're not being careful. They're not even being yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the GOP that's putting this in there and then saying, look, see, they're trying to affect our children. We as a community are not trying to affect anybody. We're just trying to live. Without y'all doing what you're doing. Without the GOP doing what it's doing. They're like Anita Bryant back in the 70s on steroids because there's so many of them and they have infiltrated the government. Anita Bryant wasn't a politician. So her pull was not as big as what's going on right now. What's going on right now is fascism. All the way. Don't underestimate these people. I said that before. I'll say it again. Yeah, we're not deviants. We're everyday people. There's nothing wrong with us. There's something wrong with you guys. There's something wrong with these GOP people, but they have enough power and clout and control to get together in Washington, D.C. and spread all this stuff out to the various states all at one time. And keep going and keep going and keep pushing. We're not pushing back. People are on their heels and they're just sitting there watching to see what happens. Yeah, well, they did that same thing in Nazi Germany. And they got run the fuck over and run out of Germany at that time, if they escaped at all. You know, some idiot made a comment. Yeah, comment in a video, a different video that I made the other day, last week, saying that, yeah, no support for, no surgical support for trans veterans because they're butchering our bodies. See, they don't understand anything at all. We choose that. And as adults, it's our choice. This goes along the lines of the abortion rights. You know, the right to choose what we do with our bodies, and it's none of your business what we're doing and why we're doing it. You don't gotta understand it. You don't gotta like it. It's not happening to you, so what is the problem? I'm just amazed at the stupidity and the ignorance of many millions of Americans in the United States. What we do is not, we're not butchering anything. We're making our bodies match the minds we've had since we were born. So what we do with them, our body, is not your business. It's our body. And no, children aren't getting these surgeries. They're not allowed to. Even parents can't force that. And you do realize that there's some states in the United States that have outlawed parents. If they help their children transition, they go to jail. They will take their children away from them and put them in foster care. See, these people aren't playing. We're the ones playing, thinking that they won't pull the plug like they've been doing. You know, when I was marching on behalf of the LGB back in the day, it was the 1970s through the 1980s that I was out there. People had a different kind of attitude and courage back then. And it's just why I just pine for that period of time where people weren't being self-centered. They were all about each other. They weren't just being all about themselves and their own personal agendas. That's going to get us run off the table, folks. And silence isn't just consent, it's violence. And I encourage you to look that up. Maybe I'll put in the description some why people say that. That it's consent and it's violence. It's like these fight videos. You know, people like TikTok especially love putting out fight videos. And if somebody doesn't step in and stop it, they're consenting to violence. If they sit there and watch it. Why do you think during Jim Crow and slavery, people would get all dressed up like they were going to a party and watch us get hung? lynching. Silence is violence. Not just consent. So I'm going to attempt to read something, and I don't know where my glasses are at the moment, but I'm going to read what I said on June 15th, whatever day that was. I wrote it for Juneteenth. And I labeled the piece Homelessness and Mental Health Issues. And subtitle is Dear White Trans Veterans. This is what got people a little riled up in the group I put it in. So this is in response to an email I received from a trans veteran organization about denouncing Rose Montoya for being topless during the Washington, D.C. Pride event. My response to that email was this. Listen, when I used to attend Pride events in San Francisco, California, lesbians ran around all day without shirts on in the 1980s, in the 80s. Also rode their bikes down Market Street during the parade without shirts and bras on. I rode with them, the dykes on bikes. They led the parade. And we got, we spiffed up our motorcycles and drove down Market Street until we got to the parade ground. So without taking my clothes off, I really can't see this. I understood the freedom of expression to do so. Transgender women are free to do the same. Gay men wear nothing but a G-string, thigh-high boots, suspenders, packed the string, the G-string, and went to church like that. I was in church off Market Street that morning, and nobody thought anything of it. Oh, my eyes. A different kind of church, but church nonetheless. So I'm not sure what that was about, but it's Pride Month. Crazier things have happened during those events. Everybody calm the fuck down, because it's only dangerous if people give it negative energy and negative attention. Let them be free for a month. Topless women in Europe do that any day, anytime. We should not judge and fall for herd mentality when it comes to that freedom. That's what she was expressing. I condone it. Just protect her. We shouldn't be prudes about it. A little smiley face laughing. Then a video of a protective LGBT veteran group running around the country. At that point, I lost it and wrote what follows, the link. So I put a link. To that LGBT veterans group that apparently shows up at events to do some, protection of LGBT people at the events. But this is what infuriates me to no end. While trans veterans denounce trans women like Rose Montoya, I don't hear a peep from any veterans when dudes like Daniel Penny murder the homeless, mentally ill black man, Jordan Neely. Nobody is saying shit about the Marines' chokehold to death of the young black man. I can hear a pin drop in this environment. So why is this way? Why is this way more egregious than transgender women running through the streets half naked? It could have been me. Trans vets. I've been homeless. I even suffer from mental illness. And every black person in this country knows it could be them that some white vigilante attacks from behind, lying about why they killed the man, with two other white men holding him down, holding Mr. Neely's arms down. And none of you say one word. By the way, Penny was indicted yesterday. If none of you knew me, would this be your lack of response, apathy, and indifference? Indifference had that happen to me? I am seen as a black man in this country, in this society, not transgender. Gay straight men think I'm a cisgender male, unless I tell them. So we cross the line of being seen like any other male. We are not as obvious like many transgender women can be. I should actually stop and go get my glasses, but if I'm gonna come back, I'll be sitting in another position. Anyway, Rose hurt nobody with her naked breasts. Yet that Marine killed someone who was irritating people on a train. It happens every day on the New York subway system. Vigilante Penny saw no value in a homeless man's life because he was black. Nobody would have done anything like that to Penny because he is white. Where was Neely's protection? What would you have done if you were on that train? Don't say the looking good thing either. And if you've never ridden the subway in New York City, don't say anything to me about what you would have done when you stand up for black people. You stand up for all people. When you protect us, you protect all of you. I'm sorry, you protect all of us. No questions asked, and leave no man behind. Marines, don't kill that wounded man either. Neely was a wounded man, wounded black man. The fact none of you inquires how any of us black trans males, maybe trans female veterans feel when things like that happen in the United States is telling in and of itself. We are traumatized in a way you couldn't possibly imagine each and every time this happens. We've got a target on our backs 24/7, 365 days a year. They're killing us for sport again. And nobody thinks to ask if we're okay. That is very telling indeed. It's why I lurk around these organizations waiting for any of you to make our issues your issue. We shouldn't have to educate you what our issues are. We know yours. If you be a compassionate soul, you already know. If you're an ignorant soul, keep your ear to the ground, because it's the right thing to do. We shouldn't have to educate you to care about black people, let alone black trans people. We're tired of being a one-liner name in your articles when we're killed. When will you fight for us without being asked? Until we are free, none of you are free either. Until you do, don't expect a heck of a lot out of people like me. I'm from the 1960s civil rights era. Make no mistake. Mainstream media has you brainwashed, herded like cattle, and you might not even know about that subway. You might not even known about that subway murder. Why? White media doesn't talk about us effectively, and the danger we face every time we do anything more than breathe in this country. Roland Martin Unfiltered does, and we have no pretenses about knowing the hidden agendas of these kinds of men. Talking about Penny. Danny Boy fucking looked like that Leo who killed George Floyd. Yes, he did. Not a care in the world. And I'm sure Penny didn't think he would be indicted. Social pressure caused that. White supremacy is pushing back on his behalf because they hate us too. You know, they've got this GoFundMe that is racking up millions of dollars for his defense because he killed a black man. I am fighter. I am veteran. I am man. I am leader. I am transgender. I am black. And I'm an ambassador of my people. I fight for and protect all black people. Now you don't have to wonder why. Your silence is killing us. Literally. It's complicit as hell. What you gonna do? Most elect to get rid of me because non-black people don't want to be reminded how millions are calling us the N-word. Shoving us in the closet and erasing us in 2023 plus. Long before thinking about erasing most of you. How millions are fine with with us being around, as long as we don't bring up those issues that you easily ignore or make you uncomfortable. Then go on about your day like business as usual. This is a big one that happens every single day in America. It is past being abnormal. It's evil. And then I made some comments about copying and pasting this and sending it to other places, or making a video about the article, and expressing my utter disgust with this blasted place that I call America, with 3 Ks at the end instead of C, among people who understand me. Thank you for reading. Now, when I wrote that, I was fired up. Indeed, I was. Because the division that has been created on purpose by racists, by homophobics, and by transphobics is crystal clear. It is done intentionally so that people are afraid, they live in fear about all these things. They don't want to do anything for anybody. It's like every man for themselves, every man, woman, and child for themselves. And I wasn't raised like that. And I see it going on constantly, that people are emphasizing self, 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 without realizing that development of self has everything to do with people around you, even people not around you. They see what society is about, yet nobody is willing to stick up for each other. Nobody is willing to stick out. They're all afraid of losing this and that and this and that. Listen, if we lose everything and every right that we have, is life worth living anyway? There has to come a point in time when you must choose each other or face annihilation. While everybody else sits around and goes, glad that wasn't me. That is what's happening in the United States right now. The apathy is ridiculous. The glad it's you, not me thing. That is what this individualism has led people to, is this point in time where people aren't doing anything about getting spat in the face. Back in the day, that was reason to fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean physically fight either, not necessarily. Yeah, I got into it with this white trans woman, veteran, who was talking about, the rhetoric she heard about the differences between MLK and Malcolm X. That Malcolm X preached violence. That man never, ever, ever preached violence. The problem was there was a lot of angry people around him who may have been into violence, but he was not into violence. But see, they don't know anything about history, and they just believe what they heard from somebody else, or from something else, that he was about violence. And I remember seeing Vietnam veteran documentaries, and how many veterans, after they served, came back from the Vietnam War and became sympathizers of the students and all of the people that were in uproar about their service to this country. Those boys didn't have a choice in the matter. They were drafted. To avoid the fate of draft dodgers, they had to go. You don't have a choice unless you want to be on the run and leave this country and go someplace like Canada or Mexico or wherever. But I can understand them being sympathizers against that war, because it was probably one of the nastiest wars that America has ever fought in. Those people didn't play over in Vietnam. But it took everybody's effort in the 1960s to pull off what was pulled off at that time. Everybody. And I'm real frustrated with white people who have so much to freaking say about our leaders, all of them got murdered, whether you agreed with them or not. It has hurt us to our core. Everybody's afraid to stick up and stick out and have leadership like that anymore, because they're afraid of getting assassinated by the government. Think the FBI and CIA didn't have everything to do with that? Yeah, it did. Yes, those agencies did. So they've got everybody afraid to take on those leadership type roles again. Anyway, I think I got through an entire video without screaming at everybody when I'm talking about some really tough topics here. This topic is tough because I'm concerned that what the GOP is planning, a whole bunch of people aren't going to see it coming, but I see it coming. And maybe I'm just one of a few who really does, and I'm not just sitting there going la 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 la, living my life as though this stuff is not happening. That the denial has not set in. It will never set in because my eyes are open. That's what is meant by being woke, by the way. Is being totally aware of your surroundings and consciously awake to what's really going on and not playing these denial games with yourselves. Underestimating the power and the speed at which this hatred is being spread about transgender people. And the people who agree with them are part of the LGBTQ+. They didn't agree with them, they would be saying a lot more than they do about what's going on, because they're targeting them too. It just won't be as easy to tell what sexuality they are. It's easier to hide that than it is being transgender. And then me having a relative tell me that we need to hide until we're completely obvious to society, meaning stay the way you are until you can come out and look presentable to the public. And I think that's why this non-binary, gender non-conforming movement is so big, because they can hide with that too. If all they transition is their name and dropping the gender, nobody knows it. And I've heard them speak of it too. The ones that are honest are saying they're being that way because they're afraid of the stigma associated with being binary. I knew it. I was just waiting for somebody to be honest about it. See, if they don't commit to one thing or the other, nobody's going to know what they are until they get in an argument about it. But, that's not going to happen on a large scale. If these GOP people go running around looking for them, they won't find them. So, anyway, this is what I had to say about an addendum to that March on Washington, is that we need to show them we're here and how many of us are out here. And who are fed up and saying enough is enough. When the orange orangutan, Cheeto head, got elected, I was very upset. I said that day, or maybe it was the next day, that if they try to force us to go back, I'm not going to survive. Well, I'm feeling that way again. Because that is what the GOP is doing. Every single last fucking one of them. Even the ones that aren't saying anything. Because their silence is going to kill us too. They're not fighting back against other GOP that they disagree with. It's going to get us killed. But, see, they're on code. They stick to the code no matter how ridiculous they are. They will not go against the code. Anyway, you guys have people have a good Sunday, a blessed Sunday, and I really hope that people stop underestimating the power of hatred. Have a good one. Ray Gibson is out.